Little warning up front. Coming up, it's an episode that is not for the faint of heart. Today, we're getting a little spooky, a little creepy. We're going to explore the most cursed songs of the rock era and beyond. There's some really unbelievable stories here, some of the most interesting I've ever heard. One song that was born deep in the desert, built around an ancient-sounding riff, and it terrified his creator because he thought he was possessed when he was writing it. There's also the killer, keyword being killer, karaoke track. It had to be banned because performing it led to a series of homicides. Another song put an entire recording studio on the fritz, making all the equipment malfunction. And then afterwards, the producer was so unsettled, he crashed into a bus full of nuns. For real. You won't believe how much the damages cost, the number that came across. From floating books and flying silverware to a jinx song that foreshadowed the death of 2 band members. We got a lot to cover here. Don't watch this one with the lights off. It's the Cursed Songs Countdown and some of the most interesting story I've ever heard. Next on Professor of Rock. Hey, music junkies. Professor of Rock, always here to celebrate the greatest artists and the greatest songs of all time. You know, if you ever owned a laser disc or a player, you're going to dig this channel, Deep Musical Nostalgia. Make sure to subscribe below right now. I know you'll find something to dig here. Click the bell and all that good stuff. Also, check out our podcast on Apple and Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts, and make sure to rate us and follow us there. Okay, so the other day, I actually had some free time. It doesn't happen very often. My wife was out of town, and this article came up on my feed, and it was about a cursed song, and it was really fascinating. So I started doom scrolling and went down this rabbit hole of cursed songs, and it got me thinking about what are the most cursed songs of all time. Songs that are not only creepy, but they feel just cursed. And so I started thinking about like songs like DOA, Bloodrock. You guys, we've talked about that one a couple of times. I mean, that's one of the freakiest songs of all time. Is flowing down my finger. I mean, there were people who had seizures when they listened to this song. Fainting and panic attacks. Paranoid late-night drivers pulling off the road after hearing it. My arm and there's no feeling. Anyway, like I said, I went down the rabbit hole of cursed songs and the creepy stories behind them, and it was just addicting. And I thought, I got to share this. So I'm going to give you my top 5 cursed songs plus a couple of honorable mentions. Now, the idea of a cursed song, that dates way back into history. But today I want to set things up with the story of Robert Johnson real quick. The legendary blues pioneer who lived hard and died young. Born in early 1900s Mississippi, Johnson shunned the life of a field worker to pursue music, to the dismay of his religious in-laws, I might add. When Robert's wife died in childbirth, her family blamed his devil music, and then the stories began. Fellow bluesmen like Sunhouse remembered Johnson vanishing for a long time, only to return with supernatural guitar skills. As the legend goes, Robert Johnson met a dark man at the crossroads who tuned his guitar in exchange for his soul. That's the legend. I went to the crossroads. Now here's where it gets really interesting. Robert Johnson's 1936 song Crossroad Blues sealed the myth and may have passed along more than just licks. Musicians who have covered the song seem to be followed by misfortune, death. Eric Clapton lost his son shortly after recording the song. Robert Plant's 5-year-old son died not long after Led Zeppelin tackled Johnson's material. Coincidences? Well, there's a few of them. Members of Leonard Skinner and the Allman Brothers Band perished in crashes near literal crossroads after performing the song. Even Kurt Cobain, who reportedly planned to cover, died at 27, just like Johnson. Now, of course, all these could be strange coincidences, but wow. Today, Robert Johnson's death remains a mystery, but what's certain is that he died at the age of 27, long before fame caught up with him. That placed him in that eerie forefront of what would later be dubbed the 27 Club. And whatever the explanation, Johnson's music and the shadow that trails behind it still haunts those who follow his path to the crossroads. At the crossroad, baby, I believe I'm sinking down. All right, so let's get into it. Here's my list of bands and musicians who tried to tap into a power bigger than themselves and may have been cursed for it. Not a good idea. Kicking off the countdown at number 5, I've got Led Zeppelin with a true classic, the mystical Kashmir. You know, some songs sound like they've always existed, like they excavated from another time. That's how Jimmy Page felt when he stumbled onto the hypnotic riff for Kashmir. He felt like a man possessed as he wrote it. He felt like he was channeling something ancient and ominous. Page said, and I quote, "It was so eerie and powerful, it scared the hell out of me. It didn't feel like I wrote it. It felt like I'd uncovered something." Now, the band hadn't even been to Kashmir, the mystical region in northern India. But the name, it conjured up a vision in Robert Plant's mind as he came up with the lyrics. As he and Page drove through the Moroccan desert in 1973, sand stretched out endlessly around them, and a surreal sense of space took hold of them. Plant was struck by the vastness of the landscape, which sparked the concept of the song. He would later say, and I quote, "The whole idea of a journey, a search, that's what Kashmir became for me." But the music was already carrying them somewhere much stranger. During Kashmir's recording sessions at Headley Grange, things got really intense, especially for John Bonham. The band was experimenting with odd time signatures, and Bonzo locked in with such ferocity that he felt like he was possessed. Reportedly, Bonham played with so much force during one take that he shattered part of his drum kit, and it still didn't stop. Page later said it felt like something ancient had taken hold of us as a band. That wasn't a metaphor. He meant it. He believed it. It freaked him out. Whether or not you believe in curses, there was a heaviness that followed Kashmir. Jimmy Page, already fascinated with the occult, he called the song the pride of Led Zeppelin. But he also admitted it felt like it came from another planet entirely. Plant echoed that, saying that it was bigger than all of us. Even Bonham, who was rarely shaken, seemed affected after playing it. He once told a roadie after a gig, "That one, it takes something out of me." To this day, Kashmir doesn't just sound powerful. It sounds like it's being played by a band possessed. From the ancient riff to Bonzo's feral pounding, something crept into that room at Headley Grange for sure. Whether it was a curse, a spirit, or just the sound of four men unlocking some ancient frequency, we may never know. But when we hear the song, you hear it, you feel it. It's a song that possesses you. There's never been a song like it. There never will be. All right, next up at number 4, I got the Crew, Motley Crue, with Shout at the Devil. You got to hear this one. In 1983, the Crew lit the fuse on their breakthrough album, Shout at the Devil. It was a glam metal fireball that turned up the volume and the controversy. I mean, the record's black and red pentagram cover, its snarling title track and hellbound attitude made it a lightning rod during the height of America's satanic panic. But what a lot of people don't know about Shout at the Devil is that Nikki Sixx originally wanted to call it Shout with the Devil. It's just a one-word difference, but it's a very crucial word. I mean, you'll see what I mean here. Okay, so at this time, Nikki Sixx was neck deep in occult literature and imagery, intent on pushing the limits of shock rock. He was reading Aleister Crowley, he was lighting black candles, and he was sketching pentagrams. Not a great idea. But then something happened that made him backpedal. In his 2007 memoir, The Heroin Diaries, Sixx described a terrifying moment that changed everything. He said, and I quote, "I was alone in my apartment working on the song when books literally flew off the shelves. Furniture moved. It was like something didn't want me messing with this." Famous A&R rep Tom Zutaut gives another account. He said that Nikki invited him over during the Shout at the Devil sessions. Now, Tom was already uneasy about the album's occult heavy direction. And while they sat around Nikki's kitchen table discussing the album, get this, silverware suddenly flew into the air. Said Tom, and I quote, "I swear I saw this with my own eyes. A knife and a fork rose off the table and stuck into the ceiling just above where I was sitting. Terrified by this event, Tom insisted that Nikki change the title. If you keep shouting with the devil, you're going to get killed." I truly believe that Nikki had tapped into something truly evil, something more dangerous than he could control. That was Tom. His words. Shout, 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 shout at the devil! Shaken by either or both of these experiences, Nikki Sixx made a critical change. He flipped the title from Shout with the Devil to Shout at the Devil, transforming the message from one of confrontation. Said Sixx, I just knew that we were messing with something that we didn't fully understand, so I rewrote the chorus. It had to be a challenge, not a celebration. But even with that shift in meaning, the chaos didn't stop. The band became a target for the PMRC, the famous PMRC. They held the song up as Exhibit A in their crusade against immoral music. Well, Nikki Sixx, he welcomed it. He said that the outrage was free marketing. But offstage, things kept getting darker. Lead singer Vince Neil's drunk driving crash in 1984 that took the life of Hanowah Rock's drummer Razzle. And of course, 1987, where Nikki overdosed and was declared clinically dead before being brought back to life. Pyro misfires, arrests, and near-death experiences continued to follow the band like a string of bad omens. According to Nikki, there was an eerie energy surrounding the record that just never went away. Said Sixx, and I quote, "We play it live and something would always go wrong. It felt like the devil was watching." Ugh, creepy. Coming in at number 3, I got Frank Sinatra, Old Blue Eyes, with his 1969 anthem, My Way.
My way.
And while the song may be famous in much of the world, in the Philippines, it's infamous. In fact, My Way has developed such a fearsome reputation, it's been linked to a string of killings at karaoke bars. Known as the My Way killings, karaoke, it's a national pastime in the Philippines, but for some reason this particular song has triggered more than its fair share of violence, especially if it's sung off key.
I face the final curtain.
All right, so some quick history. My Way originated from a French song called Comme d'habitude, but lyricist Paul Anka reimagined it after hearing it on a trip to Paris. He rewrote the lyrics specifically for Sinatra, crafting a song that reflected his persona. Sinatra was reportedly reluctant at first, but eventually delivered one of his most iconic performances on the song. Of course, the song is a bold farewell, often associated with defiance and dignity. It's a song that I sang at my grandpa's funeral. But like I said, in the Philippines, My Way inflames passions and tempers.
And now the end is near.
One of the most chilling cases happened in 2007 when a man named Romy Baligula was singing My Way at a karaoke bar just outside of Manila. A nearby security guard, Robalito Ortega, warned him that he was badly off key. When the singer refused to stop singing, Ortega pulled a gun and shot him dead on the spot. That wasn't an isolated event, though. At least 5 similar My Way offings have occurred. There's also been countless fistfights related to the song. A lot of people blame My Way's cocky, defiant lyrics. I did it my way, which can come across as arrogant, I suppose. As local singing coach Butch Albarracin put it in an interview with the New York Times, the lyrics evoke feelings of pride and arrogance in the singer as if you're somebody when you're really nobody. Others have argued that it's not the song itself, but the machismo and the pride in Filipino karaoke culture that sparks conflict. Either way, the song has been banned in many karaoke bars where it's considered cursed and too dangerous to touch. The country's karaoke scene is lively and passionate, but it also comes with an unspoken rule. At the top of that list is Don't Sing My Way. The phenomenon is so well known that Filipino media outlets have even created a separate crime category to track the violence tied to the song. Can you believe that? It's become sort of an urban legend with people avoiding it out of superstition and self-preservation. To this day, no other karaoke tracks have inspired so much bloodshed. Whether it's a coincidence or a curse, My Way has become a modern-day musical taboo, especially in the Philippines. Coming in at number 2, I've got Iron Maiden with The Number of the Beast.
666, the number of the beast.
When Iron Maiden entered Battery Studios in early 1982 to record The Number of the Beast, they felt that they were creating something truly momentous. But there may have been something stirring in the shadows. Check this out. Inspired by a nightmare that Steve Harris had after watching the movie The Omen, The Number of the Beast tapped into apocalyptic imagery from the book of Revelation in the Bible, including the number 666.
Let him who hath understanding reckon the number of the beast.
The track also featured spoken word influences from Revelations and a thunderous arrangement that introduced fans to the new vocalist, a guy named Bruce Dickinson, a badass. The song explores fear and the supernatural told from the perspective of someone witnessing a descent into darkness.
Its number is 666.
As for the curse, the recording sessions for the Number of the Beast were repeatedly disrupted by strange, unexplained malfunctions. I mean, lights flickered unpredictably, recording equipment crashed without cause, and power outages, they would halt progress at crucial moments within the recording of the song. Engineer Martin Birch and members of the band began to notice this pattern. It wasn't just faulty gear here, it felt targeted. The disturbances became so frequent, they earned the nickname Studio Poltergeist. Even seasoned techs were rattled. According to bassist Steve Harris, the vibe got so intense it felt like someone or even something was messing with them. The mood in the room shifted, and what should have been a creative peak started to feel like a haunting. And that strangeness, it didn't stop at the studio doors. But nothing could prepare them for what happened next. The incident that pushed things from eerie to downright chilling. After completing the mix for the title track, producer Martin Birch got into a car accident. Get this, he crashed his vehicle into a minibus filled with nuns. Now, the good news is that no one was injured, but the real shock, that came days later when Birch received a repair bill. 666 pounds, 666. Birch was deeply rattled, and he refused to pay the exact amount. Instead, he demanded the shop change it to $667. As bassist Steve Harris later recalled, it freaked him out. He was like, no way am I paying that, round it up. The incident spread quickly through Maiden's camp, feeding the growing sense that something dark had latched onto this album. Of course, this was all unfolding during the peak of the Satanic Panic era in the US, and the album's content didn't really help matters. With its Fire and Brimstone title and, the demonic Eddie artwork, The Number of the Beast, it drew heat from religious groups all over the place. Protests and record burnings erupted across America. Some groups even claimed the band had cursed the youth with subliminal messages. Crazy. Harris defended this song as a critique of religious extremism, saying, it was never meant to be satanic. It was inspired by a nightmare that I had after watching The Omen, plain and simple. Even decades later, the lore hasn't faded. All right, real quick before we get to the top spot, I do want to give you a couple of honorable mentions that just missed the countdown. First is Fleetwood's Rhiannon. Stevie Nicks wrote this one in 1974 after discovering the name in a Gothic novel about possession, right? Although she was unaware at the time, Rhiannon was also the name of a Welsh goddess, or witch, depending on which one you believe, linked to the moon and the underworld. After learning about the mythological connection, Stevie Nicks said, and I quote, I wrote the song before I even knew who Rhiannon was. And I thought, oh my, that's exactly who she is. And the song became the mystical centerpiece of Fleetwood Mac's live shows, and with Nicks often entering a trance-like state on stage. Said Stevie in a quote, when I sing Rhiannon, I feel like I'm not even me. She takes over, her spirit, part enchantress, part misunderstood witch. It helps shape Stevie's entire persona, actually, turning folklore and magic into rock and roll iconography. And then my other honorable mention has got to go to Gloomy Sunday.
Sunday is gloomy.
Back in 1933, Hungarian pianist Reza Sharesh, he sat at his piano in a state of deep despair. His music career was going nowhere, and the woman he loved had just walked out on him. That rainy Sunday, Sharesh composed a haunting melody that in English is called The World Has Ended. It was then later paired with tragic lyrics about a man driven to take his own life. Retitled Gloomy Sunday, and then recorded by Billie Holiday in 1941, the song gained a horrible reputation. It was linked to hundreds of self-inflicted deaths. Victims, they were reportedly found with the sheet music, clutching it. Lyrics in their notes or even the record still spinning. Very eerie. The track was even banned in several countries. Suresh called it a fatal fame, saying, "I cried all the disappointments of my heart into this song." Sadly, Suresh actually took his own life in 1968. So did the woman who inspired the song. All right, are you freaked out yet? Well, if not, here's one more, and you're not going to believe this one. We made it to the top spot, and here I have The Who with Music Must Change, written by Pete Townsend for the band's 1978 album, Who Are You?
Music must change.
Music Must Change reflects on artistic growth and the need to evolve, even when it's painful. Townsend sings of life and music moving forward while others are just left behind.
Mountains as old as the earth, so the music must change.
Now, it was supposed to be a reflective ballad, no big deal. But Music Must Change, well, it turned into something far more unsettling. The record was plagued by friction, and the band struggled to bring it to life in the studio altogether.
It gets higher and higher.
It all started with drummer Keith Moon. Now, the song was written in a 3/4 time signature, straight and steady, but completely foreign to Moon's explosive, unpredictable drumming style. And no matter how hard he tried, no matter how many times he tried it, he couldn't lock into it. Roger Daltrey later said bluntly, Keith couldn't play the drums to it. He could play great Moon drums, and that was it. Unable to find a groove, the Who considered replacing Moon's part with session drummers. But ultimately, the band settled on an odd workaround. They decided to have Keith stomp around in squeaky boots, using footfalls to mimic rhythm while the orchestration carried the beat. The result was a song with no drums, even though they had one of the best drummers ever. On a Who record, mind you. It was deeply uncharacteristic, and it left an emotional weight in the studio. The album Who Are You was released on August 18, 1978, and just weeks after the album's release on September 7th, Keith Moon died from an overdose. He was only 32 years of age. Moon had been prescribed sedatives to treat his chronic alcoholism, but he took too many tablets after a party hosted by Paul McCartney. Keith Moon died in his sleep in the same London flat where Mama Cass Elliot had passed away just 4 years earlier. Harry Nilsson, who owned the apartment, was so spooked by the tragedies, he refused to stay there ever again. Nilsson eventually sold the place. He was convinced it was cursed.
Leads on to life, but the street fighter swallows the knife.
Moon's passing, coming so soon after Who Are You, cast a long shadow over the album and marked the end of an era for this band for sure. Keith Moon never played Music Must Change live, and for Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend, the song, it became frozen in that exact moment.
The music must change.
But the strange energy around the track, it didn't just stop there. In 2002, The Who planned to bring Music Must Change back into their set list during their summer tour. But John Entwistle, their legendary bassist, he died of a heart attack the night before that tour began. So the band, they shelved the song again. Daltrey later told the Howard Stern show that it gave him a bad feeling because about how we got to move on, and it's our time to move on. That's what it says. To this day, Roger Daltrey refuses to perform Music Must Change live. Not exactly out of superstition, though, but because the song reminds him too much of the losses that the band has endured.
But the music's an open door.
But let's be honest, he's got to be a little bit afraid of it. Now, fans have speculated for years that Music Must Change, it's cursed. But The Who never embraced that narrative, at least not what they're saying publicly. Still, no other song in their catalog has seen two major deaths flank its history. And for Roger Daltrey, the best way to honor it is just to leave it alone.
As old as the earth, the music must change.
Well, what'd you think about that? Wow. These songs, very eerie, very creepy, very, very spooky. I tell you, I had a hell of a time. I went down a rabbit hole for 5 or 6 hours reading everything I could on this stuff. I hope you liked it. Let's have a great discussion below. Are there other songs that are cursed that I missed? Should we do another 5 or 6 of these songs? Love the history. I love a great story behind a song. It's why I do what I do. But let's have a discussion below. If you like our content, we invite you to subscribe. Love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, 3 chords and the truth, my friends.